know when my love of traveling really began, but I like to think that I've always been this kind of independent, literally chasing my own rainbow kind of girl. I do mean literally by the way. As in, I once tried to reach the end of a rainbow. Yeah, it wasn't any time recently, you know. It was a long time ago. I would think I was, you know, in college. Yeah. I wasn't in college. I was about 5 years old. So, you know, I was pretty sweet, naive, idealistic. My plan was to find the buried treasure, invest in the stock market, buy a mansion, and finally get to live like an only child. Yeah. I'm an adult now, but I haven't changed that much. I'm still chasing adventures, rainbows, and you know, the occasional get-rich-quick scheme. Tonight, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my travels. Most importantly, I'd like to tell you the 3 things I learned from traveling. So number 1, be cautious, not scared. I've done had most of my travel adventures as a young female solo traveler. And most people, including myself sometimes, perceive that to be a dangerous thing. But I've also drank with a member of U2 in Paris. And I saw real geisha in Japan. And I stargazed in the Jordanian desert with a local tribe. So I also think that it has some advantages. People often come to me and they ask me whether country X or country Y is dangerous to travel with. And I always say, nah, I don't really know. I mean, it depends on your perception of danger. I've been living in Turkey for about 3 or 4 years. And I've never once had my bag stolen. But I have been followed, harassed, and inappropriately touched by men countless times. I was in South America. I had my bag stolen after 5 months, like most people, but in 6 months, I wasn't hassled by a man even once. What I'm trying to say is that do your research, do your homework, talk to other travelers. But at the end of the day, there are risks involved every time you step outside the front door. And even if you don't step outside the front door, there are risks that you can't really assess. I first started to think about this after my trip to Israel. My brother wasn't really thrilled with me going to such a dangerous country. But I went and I found myself hiking, which by the way is a fancy word for walking. So I was walking in this national park and I came across a sign that said, "Beware of falling rocks." I didn't think much of it, took my selfie and I kept on walking. After about 3 minutes, I heard this crashing and rolling sound. I went back to the spot where the sign stood. Only now it was completely bent over, almost as if a giant rock had rolled over it. And I thought, my brother was right. Israel is a dangerous country. I'm not trying to be facetious here. What I'm trying to say is whether we go for a walk, whether we travel halfway across the world, or we just simply drive our cars, there are always risks. But it doesn't mean we stop going for walks, or traveling, or driving a car. It simply means we buckle up, drive safely, and enjoy the ride. Lesson number 2. This is my journey. When you're traveling for a while, it's inevitable that you meet other travelers, and you always like swap these travel stories. On one such occasion, I was talking excitedly about my upcoming trip to Machu Picchu, when this guy chimed in, Machu Picchu, so touristy. He then proceeded to tell his ad-lib story about how he sailed down the Amazon on a raft he made, foraging berries and trading with locals as he went. Yeah, there's always one of those travelers who talks about authentic travel and how he's not a real tourist, he's a real traveler. When I was in Ecuador, people told me I have got to go to the beach, and they would tell me about these drug-fueled parties and awesome surf, and I'd be like, meh. Sometimes what I think is more interesting than what travelers choose to do when they travel is what they choose not to do. For example, I did not go up the Eiffel Tower. And when I was in Buenos Aires, I didn't take tango lessons, too left feet. And in Bangkok, I didn't go to a ping pong show. And if you know what that is, then you probably know why.
Sorry.
There is no definitive top 100 list of things to do before you die, turn 40, or get married. And there's no such thing as authentic or inauthentic travel. What I really like about travel is that it's different people doing things that they want to do. And so we all have these unique stories. And you know what? When I apply that to my life, well, let me just say, every time I compare myself to others in terms of career or dating, I stop and I say, this is my journey. Lesson number 3. I was standing watching the sun rise up behind the temple, and I thought, I'm going to take a moment to breathe it all in. The hypnotic chants, the smell of incense lingering through the air. And all of a sudden, I had this realization. There was a massive queue forming behind me, and the guy in the ticket booth was not impressed. Lesson number 3. I will not find myself. There's this cliche that when you go traveling, you're going to find the key to everlasting happiness. And you may, but it doesn't quite work like that. Don't get me wrong. I've learned many things. For example, I've learned never to place a bet if you're tipsy on rakia, particularly if the bet involves drinking more rakia and then climbing down a mountain. Don't do that ever. I've learned a lot of things, to be honest, from traveling, but I think whether you're backpacking through a Malaysian jungle or simply boldly braving Istanbul's traffic, we all learn slowly through experiences, as opposed to these, profound, all of a sudden, epiphanies that you read about in books. With traveling, you learn from being where you are right now, even if where you are right now is with a massive backpack in the Madrid metro station, and oops, my flip-flop just broke. You learn to be where you are right now, even if it's digging a rainbow in your own backyard and realizing there's no treasure. Well, no treasure, except those bands of colour arching endlessly over a blurry sky. Fellow Toastmasters, the 3 things I've learned travelling are the same 3 things I've learned about life. Live fearlessly, your own way, without expectations. Thank you.